Listen up, fellow Democrats. Fight fake news and lies with facts. Save our democracy from right-wing hypocrisy. Keep our integrity and embrace our diversity. Whenever we're down, we always come back. So listen up, Democrats.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Larry Taylor, and with me today is Annie Naranjo Rivera.
Hi.
And this is the inaugural broadcast of Progressive Oregon. So welcome to everyone who is joining us today. Welcome to the show. For our agenda today, we are going to be talking about what is the Progressive Caucus. We're going to be talking about the ICE detention centers in Oregon. We're going to be talking about replacing Ann Liniger and the process that's followed when people from the legislature resign. And then we have some questions that you can answer online. So with that, we'll get started. So what is the Progressive Caucus? It is a collection of people formed from the convention last year. So as you probably know, Bernie Sanders won 56% of the vote and sent the majority of delegates from Oregon to the Democratic National Convention. That group of people stuck together and has been working together to push a progressive agenda in Oregon. Earlier this year, we decided to formalize that into an organization because what a caucus is people working together for a common cause. So we formed a PAC and we had elections. So I was elected chair, and he was elected vice chair, and we have officers and members, and we are now moving forward. So going on to the next slide, who is the public that we serve? So we consider our base in three components. There's the 56% of the Oregon Democrats that voted for Bernie Sanders and who agreed with his agenda. The next group is the disaffected Democrats that have left the Democratic Party and that we want to pull back in. And then we have the non-affiliated voters who share the values of the Progressive Caucus. We checked the voter rolls in Oregon recently, and there's around 960,000 Democrats. The next largest group, mostly due to the motor voter law, is the non-affiliated voters, and there's well over 700,000 of them. And then the next largest group are the Republicans. And we believe that many of the people in the non-affiliated category really belong to the Democratic Party, and we just need to reach out to them and pull them into the group. So we're working on a number of things. We are finding and supporting candidates for all levels of government in Oregon. We're doing outreach to broaden participation within the Democratic Party of Oregon, especially to underrepresented minorities. We are reaching out to the rank and file labor members, and we are working with the progressives who live all across the state, especially in rural Oregon, and particularly the 2nd Congressional District, which covers the eastern 2/3 of the state. And we are promoting changes within the Democratic Party so that it is run with uncompromising integrity. You have anything to add, Annie?
That's pretty solid.
You guys are doing awesome. I just want to jump in here and say hi to everybody in the chat and say that you just flew through the Progressive Caucus. That was incredible. Thank you, guys. Welcome, everybody in the audience. Thank you all for being here. I see a lot of you. Yeah, this is me behind the scenes, everybody. And we've got Larry and Annie right there on the screen. They're doing a fantastic job with the first show. And I'm trying to catch up to the slides. And we've got Betsy here, who is going to be taking your questions. She's functioning as a comment mod, but we normally have the lovely Laura Livengood doing. So when Larry says it's time, we're going to cut to Betsy and answer your questions. But I just wanted to say hi, everybody. And thank you for being here on this pilot episode today. Take it away, Larry and Annie.
So Betsy, do we have any questions at this point?
Just about whether they would be able to ask questions. So I told them yes, but I don't see any specific questions about what you just said.
Okay. So if you would like to see the website for the Progressive Caucus, it is www.pdpo.org. And over on the right-hand side is a button that you can click to join the caucus. And we have monthly teleconference calls that you can join in and participate in the meetings. So with that, why don't we go to the next segment?
So we're going to be talking to you a little bit about what's been happening with ICE detention facilities in Oregon. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background, and then we're going to speak with somebody who's on the ground. So I learned about a facility that is out in the Dells, that is a publicly funded jail operated by 4 counties: Gilliam, Wasco, Sherman, and Hood River counties. And Soleil Kabakov, who served as a national Bernie delegate with myself in Larry for Bernie in 2016, she called me and said, you know, there's something interesting happening here in my community that I'm really concerned about. We just learned that there are ICE detainees being held in our county jail. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about what has been going on. It's been a couple of months now, and then I'll tell you what we're doing within the Democratic Party to take action on the situation. Soleil?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. So we have currently around 20 immigrants in detention at Norcor, and there was a lawsuit filed Friday, July 21st, by 4 taxpayers who reside and therefore pay property tax in the Gorge, in the counties that fund the jail, and they're suing Norcor and Wasco County for misuse of funds. So they're saying, we're paying taxes, this is our public facility, and by using our resources to aid federal ICE, you are breaking Oregon law, ORS 181A820, and that law is a 30-year-old sanctuary law that says that none of our local or state law enforcement funds or resources or personnel can be used in apprehending or assisting ICE. So this brings up the argument before a judge so that a judge can look at the law and say, are they in fact breaking the law? Because we believe that they are. And so this is an opportunity to bring it before a judge to make a decision. And all the plaintiffs are asking for is an end to the contract with ICE and to bar any future contracts from being entered into. So they're not asking for their money back. They're only asking to end what's happening, to finish this because it's breaking the law and it's inhumane. A jail like Norcor is not equipped to house civil detainees. None of the immigrants in Norcor are there serving a criminal sentence. And I'm going to repeat that. None of the immigrants that are held at Norcor or ICE are there serving criminal sentences. They are there under a civil offense, and they need to be in a detention center that is geared to take care of civil detainees. Not to mention the other issues, the underlying issues inherent in the entire system of, long extended periods of detention and unjust lack of sort of right to fair and due process that people should have in this country. So this is a really big step, and it's an amazing way that the community has come together. We are standing up to say this is wrong, this is not just, it's against the law, and we're not going to stand for it any longer.
Thanks, Soleil. So we've got a couple of issues. There's the issue of, the taxpayers suing, but it comes down to a human rights issue. So the platform of the Democratic Party of Oregon is clear that we don't tolerate this type of behavior, and there are numerous places within our platform where they talk about immigration, human dignity, human rights, and upholding, the basic core belief that every person has a right to a certain amount of dignity. So we used that, and I wrote a resolution which I presented to the Democratic Party of Oregon, to our body that votes on these kind of matters, which is called the SCC, the State Central Committee. So at our second quarter SCC meeting, which was held out in Burns in CD2, we had the chance to vote on that, and we did vote it in with a 2/3 majority vote. So that is the 7th resolution that's been passed this year, and it's a pretty powerful one. It's to create a statewide jail oversight task force to protect vulnerable ethnic minority and immigrant populations. So the resolution has some teeth. We're asking the governor to create a task force, and there are a listed group of entities that should or could be included in such a task force, because we don't know if there are other jail facilities throughout the state that have also slipped through the cracks of oversight. So we want to ensure that our immigrant populations and all of our jail populations are being treated properly, and that we're not violating the state law and allowing ICE to use public funds to do what they've been doing. I spoke with a clergy member out in the Dells who had talked with a number of detainees, and the things that he told about the condition of our internet connection.
Yes. All right, back up.
So I don't know how much of that cut out there, but okay, perfect. So I'm really excited about the fact that we passed this resolution. And right now we've got a really enthusiastic bunch of people within the Democratic Party who want to live our values and are putting forward resolutions so that we can get the ball rolling on the things that we believe in and helping our communities. So I just want to say Soleil and the Gorge Ice Resistance have been a huge part of bringing attention to this. She's the one who first alerted me to this, and I don't think that most people who voted for the resolution that I put forward would know about what was happening with Norcor if it weren't for the daily protests and actions that they've been doing to raise awareness outside of the actual Norcor facility in the Dells. So Soleil,
Annie, can I make one additional comment? This is Soleil.
Yeah.
If you think that your local jail facility is not holding detainees for ICE, you may be mistaken, and this is why this resolution is so vitally important. Yeah. When you look at the Norcor website, it lists all of the criminals who are held there, like normal jailed criminals. None of the immigrants held by ICE are listed on the website, so it's invisible to the public. So it's very alarming, and that's one of the many reasons why this task force is so needed. So thank you, Annie, for your amazing work in getting this accomplished so quickly.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions on the line for regarding Norcor?
The comments more, such as Carol says, the private prison for ICE detainees is being built right now in our town and people are protesting it earlier this week. We should not have these at all in America. And Keith points out the similarity with Gitmo.
I have heard the comparison made between some conditions that prisoners of war are held in and some of these ICE facilities. The Norcor facility does make money off of this deal. So they make, I believe, and Soleil, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they make about $1 million a year contracting with Norcor.
The current contract is for $1 million, but it gets renegotiated for 2018, and they want to double it to $2 million. which you can just equate to twice as many people in detention.
Another thing I want to point out is there are other counties who are contracting with Norcor to send their detainees to this facility. For instance, we learned that Benton County has a contract with Norcor. So because they don't have the capability to house detainees there in Benton County, they have a contract with Norcor to send their folks over there. So just because the jail isn't in your county doesn't mean that your county isn't involved. So I would encourage everybody to take a couple minutes and call and find out what's happening and ask questions, because that's going to draw attention to the issue and ultimately, shine a light on what is or isn't going on.
Okay. If we're finished with Norcor, why don't we go to the next segment?
Perfect.
Well, actually, there was a question about what does the facility produce in prison labor? And somebody else asked, what's the acronym stand for?
I'm going to let Soleil answer that.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Norcor is the Northern Oregon Regional Correctional Facility. So Northern Oregon Regional Correctional Facility is Norcor, and they don't actually produce things. So when they work, they're working on internal jobs like laundry, housekeeping, maybe in the kitchen, and just the functions of keeping the jail operating.
So slave labor, basically.
Yes, that's right.
And Soleil, do you happen to know in this facility how much the people are paid?
Yes, they are paid for full-time work, $5 a week.
Okay.
So they'll work 8 to 12 hours a day, $1 a day.
And how much does it cost for them to make a phone call to say talk to their family or speak with a lawyer?
It's 25 cents a minute, and that sounds high, but it's even more when you consider that there's a minimum purchase. They have to buy phone cards. So they can't, for example, make a 3-minute call for 75 cents. They have to be able to purchase a phone card for, I think the cheapest one might be $10 or $20.
Thanks, Soleil.
Was there anything else, Betsy?
Just comments about slavery and slavery repackaged. And GEO is apparently the name of the private prison company building the facility that Carol mentioned earlier in her community.
And
I would like to point out that Oregon law does not allow for private prisons in our state. So if GEO Group is building a private prison, they're calling it a detention center, and that's a distinction we need to understand, that detention centers are not classified like prisons. And so that's something we could work on in our state. If we don't want detention centers here, we need to fix that, because already we're not allowing private prisons. So it's just semantics. They call it a detention center, and so it's allowable by law. And that's something we can work on fixing.
Right on.
Okay. Well, why don't we go to the next segment? So there are, as everyone knows, 2 major political parties in Oregon. And periodically, we have legislators who leave who resign for one reason or another. And currently we have Representative Ann Liniger, who has been appointed to a judgeship, and she'll be resigning from the Oregon legislature shortly. And there's a process for replacing them. And so what I'd like to do is do a bit of a divergence and talk about how the party structure works when these sorts of things happen. And it's actually one of the more interesting exercises in democracy that we have. So first I'll talk about how the parties are structured, because unbeknownst to most people, we have both the Republican and the Democratic Party have officers, and they do things in the background in addition to supporting candidates. and that any registered member of the party can get involved, and we would be delighted if everyone did. So going to the next slide, which you're already on. So how political parties choose their representatives. In even numbered years in the primary, we elect officers to the position of precinct committee person. This is probably language is foreign to most people. When you get your ballot in the spring, your normal ballot with all the candidates, people who are probably your neighbors. And these are people who have filed to run for the office of precinct committee person with your political party. This is the same for the Democrats and the Republicans. The Independent Party is the third major party in Oregon, but they have opted not to implement this process. If no one has signed up for this position in your precinct, then you might not receive a ballot, or you might receive a blank ballot. You can do write-ins. So if anyone receives 3 votes or more, they can be elected to this position. So the precincts are your basic geographic unit across Oregon. And if you look at your voter registration card, you can actually find your precinct ID. So after the elections are held, then you become an official member of your county organization. And at some point, your county will reorganize and you have the ability to vote for 2 groups of officers. You can vote for your county officers, your chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. And then you can also vote for the delegates who then belong to the central party organization, which for the Democrats is called the State Central Committee. That group then elects 2 sets of officers. They can elect the officers of the Democratic Party of Oregon, which is the chair and the vice chair and the secretary. And they also elect the delegates to the Democratic National Committee. And that is the national organization that those people represent. So what we're talking about today is going back to the basic foundational unit of the whole structure, which is the precinct committee person. So going to the next slide.
Hang on, Larry, I want to jump in for a second. That's
sure.
This slide, everybody, I want you to take a screenshot of it. I want you to send it out to every progressive person you know. I want you to send it out to everybody who says that we can't take control because they're too powerful at the top and they're corrupt. And I want you to look at the chain of power, because this is the chain of power right here. This is it. Larry's mapped it out. What did I become? I went from a registered voter to a precinct committee person. And if I want to do the next step, it's one of those 2 things. And then I can do the next 2 things. And once you get there, you're talking serious power. It's not that far away. There's the map, everybody. But it starts at the local level. All right, go on, Larry.
Yeah.
Excellent rant, John.
Thank you.
So as John pointed out, the precinct committee person is the building block, because we view the Democratic Party as a grassroots organization and should be run from the bottom up as opposed from the top down. So now we get to the situation where someone has resigned or has left the legislature. The first thing that happens is that after the resignation is announced, the potential candidates submit their names. The last one I participated in here in Clatsop County, I think we had around 15 people submit their names. It's very appealing to people because it's a way of getting into the legislature without running the full campaign that you would have to run in a primary. So then a nominating convention is held. And the people who participate in the nominating committee are the precinct committee people who are in the district that legislator represents. And in the nominating convention, they first decide how many candidates are going to forward, and it could be 3, 4, or 5. And then they go through a process of selecting however many candidates they've chosen to forward, and those names then go to the county commissioners. And then the county commissioners select the replacement. And so you can imagine it gets a little interesting if you have a Democrat who has resigned from the legislature, but the counties are run by Republicans. So you have Republicans actually choosing who ends up being the candidate that replaces the person who resigned. If the county or if the district spans more than one county, then the calculations get fairly complex. So each precinct committee person that shows up to the convention represents their portion of the registered Democrats in that county. And then they are able to cast those votes for the candidates. And to make it even more interesting, if you have 5 candidates that you like, you can cast your votes for all 5 if you would like. You could easily represent 1,000 votes of the Democrats in your county, and you could give 200 to one candidate and 300 to another candidate. The balloting continues until the first candidate receives a majority, and then the process starts over again with the remaining people who have filed for office, and they select the second candidate, and then they repeat it once again for the third candidate, and then those are the names that are forwarded to the county commission. So we think this could happen as we're hearing rumors that as many as 3 more people could resign from the legislature. So a lot of precinct people across the state would be able to participate. If you would like to be a precinct committee person, you do not have to wait until the primary election. You can go to your county and you can ask to be appointed to a vacant slot. And the slot could either be in your resident precinct or in an adjacent precinct to the precinct that you live in. I think at this point, roughly 25% of the precinct positions in the state are filled. So odds are that there's an open slot that you could fill. And if you get appointed now, you could participate in this process if one of your legislators, either the senator or the representative, resigns from your district. So Betsy, do we have any questions?
I don't see any specific questions about this. There's Carol said she'd like to support progressive candidates across the country to affect change, even if it isn't in my backyard. I did hear that. Carol just mentioned she'd like to support progressive candidates across the country to affect change, even if it isn't in my backyard.
Yes. So excellent. I think if you could go to Our Revolution, you can see the candidates that they're supporting. And then if you go to our website you can find out the candidates that we are supporting. And you can certainly join the Progressive Caucus and become active in the state of Oregon if you would like.
I have a question.
Yes, Hank.
So let me get this right. The grassroots, lowest, most important members of the Democratic Party are going to be deciding who the candidates are who are put forward for this office in this process.
Correct.
So the Multnomah County PCPs in this case and the Clackamas County PCPs will get to decide eventually who represents us.
Correct.
That's pretty exciting.
It is. And it's rare when we get to exercise that sort of New England style hands-on democracy, but it's actually a pretty exciting experience, and everyone takes this very, very seriously. I think I've attended about 6 of them, and for political nerds like myself, it's an exciting thing to attend.
Yeah, just a quick note on that. That's how I became a PCP. My precinct is already spoken for, and so I went in and they appointed me, and I still have to do the official thing later, but they appointed me to a different precinct that I have to, be a person for. So
Nice.
yeah, it's very cool. And now I'm excited. I wasn't going to do any of this stuff, but now I'm interested in doing more. So once you get in there, everybody, you get a taste of having your own say, having a voice at the table. You want a bigger voice at the table.
Yeah.
And I believe there's a button on our website where you can sign up to get involved in the Democratic Party. And what you can do is give us your contact information, and then come next February when it's time to file for these positions, we will contact you and make sure that you get your paperwork in on time, and that you get the right paperwork to file, and that you do everything correctly.
I got a question for you, Larry, before you move on.
Yeah.
And this is just related to candidates and kind of position of the PDPO. Are you in line with the People's Platform that was put out by Our Revolution and the bills that they're sponsoring, that we're asking our existing candidates or existing representatives to pledge to?
Absolutely. I believe there's 22 different issues that are listed on the Our Revolution site, and it's our expectation that people who come to us for help buy into the vast majority of those. To simplify things, we're actually going to be selecting the top 5 issues that are most important to us here in Oregon, because people are very interested in what our values are and what we're working for, and so that process should be completed in about a week.
Awesome, thank you.
And I would like to just point out the distinction between being appointed and being elected. So according to state law, only elected precinct committee people get to vote for the officers of the county. So it's critical that everyone become elected precinct committee people, so that they're not excluded from that piece of the election process.
Right. I mean, like right now, I can't vote until I become officially elected as a PCP. I can't vote on any of those people.
Yeah, but it is just the officers. So you are able to vote for like the delegates to the State Central Committee.
Resolutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And resolutions and all the other stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, that's cool. I've already voted for like a few things that it's like, hey, that's that is important. I get to vote on this. Damn, that's cool.
That's actually an important point to bring up too. For instance, the NORCOR resolution, we passed that in my county, Tillamook County first. And then I distributed that to all of the counties, all 36 counties, and a number of them passed it at the county level, saying that they wanted an oversight task force. And then we put it forward at the state level to show that we had broad support across the state. But all of the PCPs in each of those counties were the ones voting on that resolution. So in order to, get things done and actually fight for our platform and our values, we need the grassroots people in the room, as part of the party. So
nice.
The most dramatic example of this was what happened around the national popular vote. So starting last November, we started working with the different county organizations, and we got 25 of the 36 counties to pass resolutions in support of the national popular vote legislation. And then at the March 25th meeting of the State Central Committee, we had the state also pass the resolution, and that allowed us to write to all of our legislators in Salem, both the senators and the representatives, telling them that this not only is the position of the Democratic Party of Oregon, but probably your county Democrats as well. For those who don't know how that turned out, for the 4th time, the national popular vote legislation was passed by the House of Representatives. So thank you, Tina Kotek, and all the great work that the representatives do. Unfortunately, for the 4th time, that legislation was stopped in the Senate, even though literally thousands and thousands of people wrote and called into the senators urging them to pass this. It was a heartbreaking moment for many people in Oregon when the legislature closed and the Senate failed to act. And if you've been following the national popular vote issue, we've twice now, the president has been elected by not receiving the national popular vote. The first one was George Bush in 2000, and the second one was last year when we elected President Trump.
Did they give a reason? I mean, we know it's corruption, but did they give a real reason why they're not pushing it through?
They did not give a reason. And we were shocked because the chair of the Rules Committee, who basically held the bill from the floor, the chair, Jenny Burdick, was telling everyone that she was in support of the legislation. And then the last week of the legislature, she told everyone that she wasn't supportive. So this is a case where a single legislator was able to stop a bill that was overwhelmingly supported by Democrats. And even worse, what this means is that the way that they run things in the Senate, they like issues to have support from both parties. It's our understanding that the National Republican Party has told their people that they are not supportive of it because the electoral system has been so favorable to them recently. And so we lost many of the Republicans in support of the bill. And so that's one of the theories about why they didn't let it go forward, is because the Republicans didn't support it. And ultimately what that means is that the Republicans are calling the agenda for the Democratic Party of Oregon. And so then you ask the question, why do we elect Democrats? So we're working on it.
And this is why I've got the slide back up that says process for replacing legislators, because this is what we have to do if we want to actually pass this bill, right? Is replace those people.
Correct. Bessie, did we have any more questions?
As a comment, there's no Democratic or Republican Party. There's only the corporate party tirelessly working to undermine the Constitution, the Republic, and the people of America.
Sounds good.
Comments about what it's like to be a minority and searched by the police, which is not the topic, but maybe could be for a topic in the future for the program.
Absolutely. I like that idea, Betsy. Thank you guys for your commentary. Appreciate that. Thank you for being here. And we will definitely
take
suggestions.
Should we go to the forum?
Actually, yeah, that's a good thing. Let's look at the forum that I don't have pulled up. Give me 1 second. You want to tell everybody what it is?
This is a way for you to submit your feedback. And we'll have the forum up just in a moment. One of the benefits of participating or watching this live is that it is interactive, and you can submit questions and do things like this while we're on the air. These shows are archived, so you can always come back and watch them. So the link will appear in people's chats, and then they can click on the link and answer the questions.
We'll be sharing this out after the show, everybody, as well. We'll get this link to you, and we didn't get that dropped in at the beginning of chat. That was something I needed to get to Betsy. My bad. You would have had time to fill this out while we were doing the show, which is what I should have done. So you want to go over the questions, Larry? Do you have that pulled up?
Sure.
Okay. Because I didn't know that we actually operated ICE detention facilities.
Actually, it's too small on the screen for me to read.
All right.
Them, John?
That's all right. That's all right. So why don't we do this? We're not gonna get everybody's answers to be able to discuss it right now live. So why don't we send this form out and have everybody, just answer these questions for this time. We'll get another form going for next week's show, and I promise we'll engage with you guys on that and start getting answers taken in early, which is totally my fault. So we do that. What's next on the agenda, Larry?
That is the end of our agenda.
All right, Density. I won't beat myself up. Not now, anyway. I'll do it later. Is Annie still with you, or did she take off?
Annie had to take off.
Oh, okay, great. Give me 1 second here. We'll just put Larry back up. Oh, come on, Cam. thank you all for being here. I mean, Larry, good job. Well done, sir.
Thank you. This has been great and actually a pleasant experience.
Wasn't supposed to be, right?
So just a detail about next Sunday. Next Sunday is actually the State Central Committee meeting in Tillamook.
Ooh.
And so we will not be able to do a live show at this time. So we can talk later about what we're going to do. But we will be doing our business with the Democratic Party of Oregon next Sunday.
Great, great. So sorry. So we won't be doing a show because that's going on, right? Is that the deal?
Correct.
Okay. Do we want to plan it for a different day or just skip a whole week?
Why don't we skip a whole week?
All right. Well, that sounds good. Everybody, thank you for being here. We're going to go out. I actually, before we go, I'm going to drop this link right now in the chat. You guys are just going to look at Larry. And actually here, we'll look at this. And we'll go out with the song. Tell everybody about the song, where that came from, because I thought that was cool.
Oh, the song was composed by one of our fellow Democrats, Will Hobbs. And I pitched him a rough draft of lyrics, which he dispensed with immediately and wrote his own. And then he turned that in 2 days ago.
Outstanding. Yeah, I like it. It fits. So I will get this dropped into the Slack as soon as I get this show over, guys. I just have to run the outro. Thank you for being here. This is the first of the Progressive Oregon shows with Larry Taylor. And we will see you guys in a couple weeks.
Listen up, fellow Democrats. Fight fake news and lies with facts. Save our democracy from right-wing hypocrisy. Keep our integrity, embrace our diversity. Whenever we're down, we always come back. So listen up, Democrats.